Hello, English 1101 students, and this is the class video for Monday, December 6th. And I am going to go over today a review of the syllabus and the few dates that we have left between now and the end of the semester. We are almost at the end of the semester right now, and we still have the first draft of the research paper and the final draft of the research paper that is due. That's the only work that's going to be due from now to the end of the semester. I'm not going to be assigning any other exercises, but I will go over the last exercise that we did, the one on quoting in context, because I did grade all of them that I received, and I just wanted to give a little bit of general feedback on that exercise. So that's what's on the agenda for today, and let's go into screen sharing. So from here, we are going to go into our class under content. And first thing we're going to do is a little syllabus check-in. Okay, so here, takes a little while for me to get down to the course schedule. So the course schedule here is what you want to be checking just to make sure that you are up to date on all and very clear on all of the due dates. So here we have on the 8th, that's this Wednesday, the first draft of the research paper is due. Monday, next Monday is the last class video. So this is the last technical day of our class, but it doesn't mean we're finished because Friday the 17th is when the final research paper is due, okay? So assuming that you hit that deadline, you are done as of next weekend. Friday the 17th before midnight is the deadline for the final draft of the research paper. So that means that you are going to be getting feedback from the draft that you submit to, if you get it in time by the end of next week. Well, here's the thing. The closer you can get to submitting your first draft on time, the more likely you are going to be able to use the feedback that you get to produce a final draft that'll get you a really high grade. Not to put too fine a point on it, but that's how it works. So the 8th of December is this Wednesday. If you get your first draft in by that time, I will be able to get you feedback by the end of the weekend, right? So by the following Sunday, which means that when we have our very last class video on Monday, you will already have gotten your feedback by the time you watch that video. So you will be ready to make any kind of final corrections for the research paper. Now, for some of you are very, very close to where you need to be for that final draft. So you may only need to make a few little corrections between Monday and Friday based on the feedback that you get. So other cases, you're going to have a little bit more work to do. So that's just, to let you know that that first deadline of this Wednesday is really pretty important to get that deadline, because that way you will be able to get your feedback in time to make those corrections, to make that very last deadline of Friday the 17th. But you notice, you probably saw this, that there is one more final deadline, right? And that is Wednesday, December 22nd. That is the last day to submit late assignments. No late work will be accepted after Wednesday, December 22nd. So that means, and this applies to a lot of you, believe me, that means that if you have missing assignments at any point in this semester, from the beginning of the semester to the end of the semester, you have until Wednesday the 22nd to submit them to get credit for them. Now, that doesn't mean you get full credit. but it does mean that you will earn some points on those, and that will get you much closer to a passing grade in some cases, a grade over a C in other cases. Depending on how many assignments you have missing, it could make the difference between passing the course and not passing the course, or it can make the difference between a C and a B, or a B and an A, right? Depending on how many assignments you have missing. So please pay attention. Go into your grade center and see what assignments you are missing. This is your amnesty day, right? You have until the 22nd to get in all final assignments. And that includes the research paper, right? It includes everything. That's not an open invitation or encouragement to wait until the 22nd, because what it means if you wait until the 22nd is you don't get time for feedback. It just means that I will accrue points for getting that assignment in, but it's too late for you to benefit from any feedback. In other words, it's too late for you to make any revisions based on feedback. It's just a final deadline, right? So, so please do make the deadline of the 8th for the first draft of the research paper, and for the final draft of the research paper, it's the 17th. So let's go back into screen sharing. And we're going to take a look at a couple of other things here. So going into our main content section and the Unit 3 folder, because everything's in Unit 3 now. The research paper assignment, we want to take a look at that. Just make sure that we're really familiar with all the due dates here. So we've already passed the first due date, the outline and references page. If you got that in, you've already gotten your feedback for that. The first draft is due this Wednesday, final draft due the 17th. Please review all of the requirements for the research paper, right? You're going to need a cover sheet and a references page. I'm going to provide you with a model to that cover sheet, so you will all see that. I will go over that in Wednesday's class. There's really not much to it. It's the standard APA formatted cover sheet that's required for this assignment. Be very familiar here with the points breakdown, right? Be aware that the biggest chunk of points is for revising based on instructor feedback. That's why it's important to get your first draft in on time, right? So you have enough time to get that feedback and to make changes based on that feedback. It's the biggest chunk of points that you get for this assignment. Now, the other thing that I want to review is the exercise that we did. The very last exercise assigned this semester is the skills building exercise, working with sources for Unit 3. Now, I graded all of them that came in, and here's what I am seeing. Now, some of you were able to catch the information that was missing in the student's quote without too much trouble. And others spotted something else and said that, for example, the missing information was, some part of the source interpretation that gave more information on, for this example, more information on COVID-19, or more information defining what is long COVID. None of that was the problem. The problem was actually something very, very simple, which is this: Heinz, right? Who is Heinz? That's the missing information. So in the original text, we know who Heinz is from the introduction, right? On the morning after Christmas 2020, Carolyn Heinz woke up and realized she couldn't smell or taste anything. Other signs of COVID-19, like fever, cough, muscle aches, came in the following days. To this day, Heinz, 38, can barely smell or taste anything, right? So this is the information that's missing. We need to know who is Carolyn Heinz. So this is you know, an introduction. It's what the writer has done in this first paragraph of the original source article is to introduce Carolyn Hines as part of the hook of the article, right? The morning after Christmas, 2020, Carolyn Hines woke up, right? So it's kind of like starting a story. It's like starting a narrative, you know, it could be fiction, you know, in the first sentence, but it turns out that it's a news article. And we need to know the second time she is mentioned, Hines, only by her last name, we need to know this by the time we get to this. And we certainly need to know the information that she is a COVID-19 patient by the time we get to the part of the quote that the student left us with here, right? So this is the student's use of the quote. And this is the only mention of Carolyn Hines right here. Perhaps worst of all, Hines doctors have said they don't know how to treat her. But there is no explanation anywhere up until this point of who Hines is. We don't know that her first name is Carolyn. We don't know that she's a COVID patient. We don't know she was diagnosed with COVID-19. We don't know that she is experiencing loss of smell and taste. All of that information needs to come before we encounter her name. That's the problem. So it needs an introduction to this patient. Otherwise, the quote doesn't make sense. So what I saw a lot of students doing is just making the answer a lot more complicated than it needed to be. So the missing information is, who is Hines? For the second quote, the second example here, oops, that was the second example. I'm sorry. The first, I'm doing them in the wrong order, so forgive me. That was the one that more people had trouble with though. So this is the one AI, the article about can artificial intelligence make moral decisions? So in this one, we can see that we have a source article that describes artificial intelligence and raises the question, are machines ready to take on the uniquely human enterprise of ethics? Okay. In the second paragraph, we have an introduction to the Delphi model of moral reasoning. And we have a description sentence. Delphi is a digital data system trained on a large data set of human language samples to make ethical evaluations. Okay, this sentence right here. But so after that, it's only referred to as Delphi, right? After this description sentence, it's only referred to as Delphi because we've already described what it is. But when the student uses the information, this is what the student does. Data scientists are only now beginning to explore the possibility of artificial intelligence making moral judgments. We may not be comfortable with the idea of leaving it to a computer to decide whether it's okay, for example, to lie to the boss, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have the setup to the quote, according to Melissa Wheeler, PhD, writing in Psychology Today, initial testing of Delphi's judgments. And the reader stops and says, Delphi, what is Delphi? And the reason the reader is confused is because the information in this sentence is missing. Delphi is a digital data system. That's what's missing. Delphi is a digital data system that is meant to make moral judgments using human language samples to make ethical evaluations. That's what's missing. Just that information, just this one sentence makes all the difference in the world as to whether the reader is confused or whether the reader understands what you're talking about. So that's what's missing. So if you got that exercise back and you got less than 100 points, which I have to say, nobody got 100 points. There were people who got very close. There were people who knew that there was something missing about Delphi, but they didn't quite get that what's missing about Delphi is just the definition that it's a computer program, right? That is what needs to be clarified. For the first one, it is a definition of what is Delphi, a very simple one-sentence definition. So either the way to fix that is to include that whole sentence as part of the quote, the sentence that defines what the computer program is, or else you summarize and rephrase in your own words what it is. And sometimes, depending on, you know, the length of the original quote, sometimes it's better to just expand the length of the quote. It's definitely simpler than doing the work of summarizing, but sometimes you can summarize it in much fewer words, and it just makes your writing a lot smoother and easier to read. So this is up to the writer's judgment, but what you have in both of those students' examples is a simple, very simple information gap. So that's what you need to do is, again, train yourself to read your own writing as if you haven't read the source material, right? And if you are not sure that you're very good at that yet, then give it to somebody else to read and ask them if it makes sense to them. Give it to someone else who hasn't read your source material and say, does this make sense to you? Is there anything here that just jumps out at you like it doesn't make any sense? And they will help you. All right, so that's my my tip. So in the next class video, we're going to be going over how to format the total research paper from beginning to end. It's not going to be very long because we've already gone over, you know, how to format quotations, etc. But I'm going to be talking about the cover sheet and attaching the works cited page and just the final things that you need to know to get your first draft in. So, so that's about it. And we will talk to you all again on Wednesday. Thank you very much.